On the planet Sypharon, located in the distant galaxy Merion, lived a race of beings known as the Netians. These creatures were unusual even by the standards of intergalactic civilizations. Their bodies were composed of semi-transparent plasma, and they could change shape depending on their mood and state. They were so closely connected to their emotions that their appearance changed every second. The protagonist of this story is a young Netian named Tenar. Tenar was one of those considered failures on Sypharon. He was born in one of the poorest sectors of the planet, and his family, having once lost their connection with the great scientists of the past, had sunk into poverty. As a child, he dreamed of becoming a famous inventor like his distant ancestors, but with each passing year, that dream seemed more and more unreachable. On the planet, there was a unique form of economy based on emotional energy. Every resident of Sypharon could concentrate on their feelings and sell this energy through special devices called atmospheres. However, the poorer regions where Tenar grew up were known for the fact that their inhabitants couldn't generate enough positive emotions to support themselves and their families. The people there lived in constant depression and anxiety, which only worsened their dire situation. Tenar's father, Sypharon, had once been a respected engineer, but after an accident at a space factory, he lost his ability to generate emotions, becoming unemployed. Since then, Tenar's family had lived in extreme poverty. Nevertheless, Tenar didn't give up. He searched for ways to break out of this vicious cycle. One day, while Tenar was selling the last bits of emotional energy at the local market, he overheard a conversation between two well-dressed alien merchants. They were talking about a new project by the Asterian Corporation, which was developing a revolutionary device, the emotion transmitter. This device was supposed to allow anyone to produce emotions, even if they were in a state of depression or had lost the ability to generate them. However, to complete the project, the corporation was looking for engineers and inventors willing to work on the device, promising enormous rewards. Tenar decided this was his chance. He knew he had to somehow get an interview with Asterion, but he had neither money for transportation nor connections. Moreover, he needed to sell even more emotional energy just to afford a place to sleep. At night, he slept on the streets, and by day he ran around the city looking for any kind of job. After a few weeks of desperate attempts, Tenar got lucky. He met an old friend of his father's, Arex, who had once worked with him at the space factory. Arex agreed to help Tenar prepare for the interview, giving him some of his father's old blueprints that might be useful in the development of the device. Tenar came to the Asterion interview exhausted but determined. Many trials awaited him, technological challenges that required sharp thinking and an innovative approach. In one of the corporation's rooms, he met the project's chief engineer, a strange being named Cryon. Cryon was notorious for his harsh treatment of candidates. He didn't believe that such a young and inexperienced Netian like Tenar could offer anything of value. But Tenar didn't give up. He was tasked with solving one of the project's toughest problems, configuring the atmosphere so that it could not only collect, but also transform negative emotions into positive ones. This was the hardest task, one that had already stumped the planet's best engineers. Tenar spent sleepless nights studying his father's blueprints and honing his knowledge of the nature of emotions. He recalled Fane's stories about how strong emotions could be a source of great power. These thoughts became the key to his solution. He proposed an innovative approach, using the plasma structure of the Netians' bodies to create a unique model of the emosphere, which could adapt to the emotions of its owner. When he presented his solution to Cryon, the engineer initially frowned skeptically. However, after a few minutes of testing the device, Cryon's eyes lit up. Tenar's device worked. It not only solved the problem, but also made it possible to generate emotions far more efficiently than expected. After the successful presentation, Tenar was accepted into the project. His life gradually began to improve. Having secured a position as an engineer, he earned enough to move to a more prosperous area and even help his father regain his ability to generate emotions with the help of his own device. But despite his success, Tenar knew new challenges lay ahead. The emotion transmitter project was only the beginning. On his home planet, millions of beings still needed help. Many continued to live in poverty, deprived of hope and belief in a better future. Tenar decided he would dedicate his life to improving the world, creating new technologies that would help every inhabitant of Sypharon and other planets in the galaxy. He realized that true happiness wasn't in material wealth or recognition, but in doing something useful for others. And although the path to his dream had been full of obstacles, he understood that every step, every moment of pain and despair had made him stronger and brought him closer to becoming who he was meant to be. Thus, Tenar, who had started as a poor youth with no chance for the future, became a symbol of hope and progress on Sypharon. His story inspired millions of beings across the galaxy, showing that even in the darkest moments of life, one can find light if they don't give up and keep moving forward. Several years passed since Tenar became part of the Asterion project. His invention, the emotion transmitter, revolutionized Sypharon and beyond. Now even the poorest inhabitants of the planet could generate energy, sell it, and improve their situation. Tenar's life had improved. He moved into a cozy home, was able to support his family, and even brought his father back to the ranks of engineers. Everything seemed to have finally fallen into place. But deep inside, something was troubling Tenar. Despite all the success, he felt an odd emptiness. Having achieved what he dreamed of, he began to wonder, what's next? What if his invention was only the beginning of something greater? Were there limits to technological development, or was he simply not seeing the whole picture? One night, while working on improving a new model of the hemisphere, there was an unexpected knock on his door. It was unusual. Guests rarely came at such a late hour. When he opened the door, Tenar saw a stranger. Her plasma body glowed a soft blue, signaling a mix of concern and mystery. "Are you Tenar?" she asked quietly, her voice trembling. "Yes, that's me. How can I help?" "My name is Arya. I'm from the Talaron sector." The girl looked him straight in the eyes. "You have to come with me. There's something you need to see." Tenar wasn't one to easily trust strangers, but something in her voice and gaze made him wary. He decided to follow her, hoping to discover what could be so important. Gathering the necessary equipment and taking his latest invention, he followed Arya into the night. They left the city and headed for the desolate Talaron sector. This area was known as one of the poorest places on Sypharon, and even after the introduction of the emotion transmitter, little had changed there. Tenar had often heard about strange malfunctions occurring in this sector, but he assumed they were due to infrastructure problems or errors in device setup. But the farther they went, the more uneasy Tenar felt. The sky above Talaron seemed different, darker, more threatening. The energy in this place felt strange, and the emotion transmitter he carried constantly emitted error signals. When they reached an old building, ruined by time and poverty, Arya stopped. "Here, inside," she pointed to the dark entrance. Without hesitation, Tenar entered. Inside, it was dark, but he felt the building was filled with some kind of forms. Activating his plasma vision, he saw that other Nedians surrounded him. Their bodies emitted a faint glow, and their emotions were filled with fear and pain. These were beings who seemed to have lost the ability to generate anything but deep despair. "What's happening here?" Tenar whispered, looking around. Arya stepped forward and replied, "These beings are the result of your invention." Arya's words hit like a lightning bolt. Tenar realized in horror that standing before him were those who had been harmed by the emotion transmitter. Some Nedians, unable to cope with The powerful emotional flows had been literally consumed by their negative state. Instead of transforming emotions, they had become victims of the device, their feelings devouring them from the inside. Tenar fell to his knees, feeling his own emotions begin to surge inside. He couldn't believe that his invention, which was meant to bring only good, had turned into a source of suffering for these beings. "But how is this possible?" he whispered. "I tested the device hundreds of times. It wasn't supposed to cause harm." "You considered everyone but those on the edge," Arya replied, her voice full of sorrow. "There are those whose emotions are too unstable. They don't have the inner strength to handle the flow. They burned up in their feelings, like coals in a fire." Tenar realized he had made a grave mistake. In his pursuit of success and recognition, he hadn't thought about the consequences for all the inhabitants of Sypharon, especially those who were most vulnerable. He had taken a step towards a global revolution, but had overlooked those left behind. From that moment on, Tenar's life changed again. He couldn't leave these beings in such a state. In his laboratories at the Asterian Corporation, he began work on a new project, an emotional stabilizer, a device that would protect users of the emotion transmitter from dangerous surges of emotional energy. It took years of research and sleepless nights, but eventually the stabilizer was completed. With it, those most vulnerable could safely use the emotion transmitter. Tenar personally visited the Talleyrand sector and installed the devices in every home. Now, his invention no longer posed a threat. The inhabitants of Sypharon, including those in the poorest regions, had a chance to improve their lives without fear of falling victim to their own emotions. Years passed. Tenar continued his work, constantly improving his inventions and dedicating his life to helping others. He became a symbol not only of progress but of responsibility and care for all. His story spread across the galaxy, inspiring millions of beings to seek innovation but never forget those who needed help the most. And although Tenar had made mistakes along the way, he always found the strength to admit them and correct them, which made him not just an inventor, but a true leader in his world.